Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to the KaiNexus Continuous Improvement Podcast. I'm Mark Raven, a senior advisor with KaiNexus, and we're joined today. We have two guests from one of our customers, Memorial Health System in Marietta, Ohio, and in that Marietta, Ohio area. They are Lynn, Howell, and Mary Huck, and they'll introduce themselves a little bit more. So let me first off say thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're glad to be here.
So Mary, can you start off first and tell us a little bit about Memorial Health System?
Yeah, so like you had mentioned, Mark, we are in Marietta, Ohio. That is on the southeastern border. We are along the Ohio River. We have multiple sites and locations within about an hour's driving distance from the main Marietta. And we have inpatient and outpatient services, and we stay around 3,000 employees.
And to hear a little bit about your backgrounds, because I know you have different professional backgrounds, but you've both ended up working in process improvement. Lynn, can you introduce yourself first?
Yeah, so my name is Lynn Howell, and I have been with the organization for about 10 years. So I started here right after I did my undergrad, which was in respiratory science. I have a bachelor's of science in respiratory. I worked on the floors, worked in sleep lab, and that's kind of where I got introduced to lean. I did a bunch of Kaizens. That's when our organization had just started that, and became very interested in the department. From there, I managed some clinics and completed my master's at a high university. And then I joined the team about 4 years ago. So it'll be 4 years in August, I believe. And I completed my black belt with more steam. Mm-hmm. So I have a black belt in Lean Six Sigma. I have one kid, one dog, and I'm married. So that's my big story, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's a good rundown. And this is putting you on the spot. Do you remember what your first Kaizen was, or one of the first?
Yeah, it was actually like World Hunger. So they were trying to do patient throughput, inpatient throughput. And so basically when they had brought in frontline staff, and I was a frontline staff member in respiratory at that time, they had like this big map up on one of the boardroom walls. And we were working through patient admission to discharge. And basically how those big Kaizens went kind of guided how our team worked from that point forward, because it was really hard to pull people out, frontline staff out for weeks at a time. But it was my first introduction. We got to present our ideas to admin on how to fix like our pieces of the puzzle, which was really great. And really I'm like, I like this, and it's something I want to learn more about. So
yeah. Well, good. You were hooked. A good first experience. That's great. Mary, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, so my clinical background is my associate's is radiologic technology. So I started in the system a little over 5 years ago as a X-ray tech. And I then went to educational services. So I worked in the education department, teaching hospital orientation and supporting the ancillary departments. I transitioned to this role about 3 years ago as a continuous improvement specialist, and been loving it ever since. And I think we are still working on throughput, Lynn. So like you said, it's never ending.
I have a little bit of flashbacks, and we have started this in the last year or so. Mm-hmm. Everything comes back.
Yeah,
well, you're right. That is a big sticky problem. A puzzle is a good way to describe it. But I guess with each improvement, you kind of chip away at the problem. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, I think you calling it a puzzle is true, because that's one of the things I love about this job is we get to see all the different pieces and how they connect together. So that is a huge part of throughput, of understanding each different department's role together.
Well, and I think the departments and the fields that you both come from are part of many different patient flows. So I don't know if that helps give you a better appreciation for, getting outside of your silo, if you will, and being able to look more broadly.
Yeah, I've worked, respiratory and in the clinics. So I think it's always interesting to see when we talk about throughput, because we are an inpatient, outpatient health system, how those two interchange each other. One of our big projects I'm going to kind of bring up, but we're working on improving outpatient access, and now they kind of want to flip back to inpatient. And we brought up that improving outpatient access may hinder our inpatient flow because they utilize the same resources. And our team kind of a lot of times is the person or team that bridges those gaps because we are so familiar with so many different areas of the health system.
Yeah, that's great. And Mary, I'll ask you the same question I asked Lynn. Do you remember what your first Kaizen, or one of your first improvements that you formally worked on was?
Yeah, my first improvement, I went out to the revenue integrity department. So, which they're a lot of the backside of healthcare. So I was able to kind of bridge the gap between understanding what the frontline staff is doing and how they're documenting can affect what the back end is seeing for the billing department. So I thought that was a great first opportunity to start learning all the different areas of the system.
Mm-hmm. And so, so maybe Lynn, we have an opportunity now to take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the terminology and methodology that's used there at Memorial Health System. I know you use the term process excellence. Can you tell us what that means and a little bit about your structure there?
So that is our department's technical name, is the Process Excellence Department. And it kind of came about, our director went for operational excellence for his master's, and they kind of crafted the title off of that because it was a new department. They sent him for that, that master's program to lead our team now. A lot of people still call us the continuous improvement team or CI team. So I think if you would ask what that means in our health system, it really depends on who you're asking. So if you would ask admin, I think admin would say that means we're facilitators of change or initiatives. Basically, if they come up with an idea of something new that they want to try with their leaders or with the health system, or a big problem, they kind of present it to us, and we come back to them and say, this is what this would look like. If we want to work on this, this is how we think we should approach it. Kind of give them that guidance on they're big thinkers and we're the doers sometimes, how that works. So I think if you would ask the frontline staff that we work with, they would see us as helpers. A lot of times when we do go into areas, we are just there to improve their flow, whether it's helping them figure out how to work Excel, which seems really silly, but it literally can change a frontline staff member's day, and we're there to listen. So I think if you talk to people we've worked with, frontline staff, they just see us as blending in. They see us as a help. They know that we mean change. Sometimes they're hesitant when we first show up. So that's kind of people that haven't worked with us at all. They just usually see us as someone admin sent sometimes and don't know why we're really there till we start working with them. And then leaders or people we're coaching through the different belt systems, they just see us as a guide. I think they sometimes aren't sure why they need a coach until they meet with us for a while, and they're like, and then they can just keep coming back even when they don't have to anymore. So it's funny you talk about those different names, and is it fair to say they can call you whatever they want as long as they call you in to help and coach? Yeah. We always say we're available if you need us, and I don't really care. Sometimes I even call us the CI team just so people know that to reference. So it really doesn't matter to me what they call our department.
Sure. Anyway, you talk about, kind of the need, the time and the place for helping. Sometimes you have to step in and do. I mean, and in healthcare, it can be a challenge to get people's time dedicated because patients are still coming in. Like sometimes people use the analogy of, trying to replace an engine on an airplane as it's flying through the air. You don't have the luxury of calling time out, shutting things down. What are some of the ways that you help navigate some of that?
I would say as we're going into projects, we don't start having work sessions until they're needed. So since we follow DMAIC process, we really spend a lot of times just doing observations. And in those observations is where we start to build those relationships and kind of talk to them while we're going through the project. But if we are recruited to do a project in an area, we will tell the leader we need to have time with the staff and you need to give them that time. It's kind of setting that expectation up front that we will need the staff help to do this. We're not going to come in and just give you the answers because we don't know them. So recently I was in the wound center. So we had like weekly work sessions, 1 day a week for an hour, and they had their lunch and, we had great feedback. And then as we don't need them anymore, we can taper them off as we like move into improve and control. I think that's pretty consistent across the board as far as projects and getting that time. Now, leaders, they have a harder time even with that, just stopping to do coaching. A lot of times for us is just telling them you are already doing the work. You're doing this stuff. And we utilize KaiNexus to track that work. And right now you're doing all this work and no one even knows you're doing it and you're butting up against people. So sometimes once we can get them to see that and really know that that's not an extra step, it's to help them and to be able to celebrate all the hard things that they're working on. It really starts to sink in with them.
Yeah. And Mary, I'd like to come back to you in a second to talk about your title and role of CI specialist. Lynn, what's your title there within this?
Yeah, I'm a CI specialist as well. So We're the same.
So you're both CI specialists. So I was going to bounce it back over to Mary. If you could maybe elaborate on what, like maybe there's the formality of what the job description says. You don't have to read the job description, but there's the formal role, and then what do you try to make of that role being a CI specialist?
Yeah, the formal role is leading improvement projects. But really, we start observation somewhere and we set our KPI from the beginning. This is what we're going to track. But when you get in there are all these other little things and that you kind of become that person for the staff. They'll come to you with little questions and if you're able to do that, that we can get their buy-in that way. They start to trust us. And they see that we are here to help them. And we kind of become a middleman for them. So we try and be their voice when we can to represent them and how we can help them in their daily work and what they see and hear and what our patients hear and see how it is for our patients. So, and with coaching, we kind of sometimes become just someone to bounce ideas off of. A couple of years ago, we started we have a program initiative called Value Enhancement, and every leader in the organization was required to do some sort of project or just do it and to track it in KaiNexus. And so our team divided up different leaders and who we coach. And I was lucky enough to get a couple who, even though when we took a break on value enhancement, still continued wanting to meet and just doing that coaching. I think just to double check, getting that second input, kind of were their internal consultant. So getting that second kind of feel, idea, hearing about what other departments are doing with this issue, we're kind of able to bridge that gap for the leaders. So probably not in our job description, but definitely a bonus.
Yeah.
As all other duties as necessary.
Yes, that is definitely in there, I think.
As assigned or as necessary.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to hear you both mention, you talk about starting with observation, and whether you're using DMAIC as a structured framework, or let's say if someone's using the A3 methodology from a lean terminology or method standpoint. I think the one common theme is trying to avoid jumping to solutions. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit. Hopefully you're not being brought in to say, hey, go implement this. You're following a methodology.
Well, we may be brought in and told that, like, this is our goal. We want to add staff, or we want to get rid of, we want to get rid of staff. And we always say that's not what we're going to do. But we will kind of go in and say, you guys really thought the problem was X. And then when we dove into it, we've seen all these other things. And I think one of the best things for our project is that we basically guide the project. So we are the ones that are saying, this is what's actually happening, because we'll go into projects and the leader's perception of what's actually going on is a lot different than what is actually going on. And once we start doing observations and we're able to bring that back to the leader, and they're like, oh, I didn't know that, or I didn't ask that, or any of those lines, we're kind of able to shift that leader. Because a lot of times the leader thinks that they need to do the work or they know the answer. I coached a supervisor. He was sitting through yellow belt class, and he's like, they just need to work harder. That's all they need to do, you know. And if this other department would fix their problem, then we wouldn't have a problem. So when I was coaching him through his yellow belt project, with the solution that they implemented was something that didn't have anything to do with the other department and help them reach their goal. And he's like, yeah, Lynn really had to like beat me up to get me there, but I understand.
He ended up eating his words.
Yeah, he did. So I'm like, you can't go outside and tell other people what to change before you can say you've optimized yourself. And I think that's something that we bring, again, like just knowing this health system, the ins and outs of a lot of places, being able to talk to frontline staff, like they'll question why something happens. Well, actually, you know, this is the process for that. And they're like, oh, I had no idea, because they're stuck in their silos. They don't have time or get that time to go and see and the customers on the other end or those that are feeding them their work.
Yeah.
And I think when we go into areas, we get to ask the dumb questions, you know, so like the leaders, they're supposed to be the ones who know it all. And we get to ask, we call it the dumb questions, but there's no dumb question, but we get to ask why do you do it this way? And I think that helps a lot understand the process and the history and the background to it. It helped, or this other department changed what they were doing. So to help, you know, we had to change this way, and we're able to be like, well, I don't think they're actually doing that anymore. So that's kind of nice when we are able to do that. Yeah.
Well, there's a real advantage and a benefit to coming in fresh eyes, maybe is a more positive way of framing it, right? Because you're right, they're not dumb questions. I mean, you know, some people use language around, humble inquiry. Like you're asking questions that you don't know the answer to. Help me understand. Let's figure this out.
And we don't understand their process, so that's why we have to get to that. And I think when we start asking why, it starts maybe making the staff ask why as well, because when they're in it every day, you know, it's just their life. They don't really always understand that there's another way.
Yeah. And Lynn, back to your point about coaching. I mean, I love the way you describe, sometimes a coach has to disagree or push back or challenge things. Like you said, you might be brought in. I've been in situations like this. We think the problem is this. Like, well, the problem is actually something else. Or here's our solution. And say, well, time out. Have we defined the problem properly? Exactly. And then you get into your DMAIC process.
Yeah, that's it. A lot of times I feel like, or we get called in and they're like, we don't know really what's wrong, just that something's not right. So then it's kind of, we do a lot of time just even helping them figure out what is the true problem of what's going on here. So I definitely think our department, I would say, has a lot more liberties of freedom of opinion. A lot of times we're allowed to kind of push back on those leaders and kind of present the facts of what's actually going on. And I think that, you know, that makes us feel good too in our department, that we can help guide leaders and say, this is what's right.
Yeah.
And we're coming from a good place. We're trying to, improve the processes for the patients and for the employees. You know, we're coming from the right perspective.
Yeah. So they respect that.
Yeah. Lynn, you've touched on some of this a little bit. You know, we talk about facilitating projects. You've already sort of talked about kind of a shift from doer to helper to coach. Do you remember, was there a point in time, was there a light bulb moment where you started to make that transition, or was it just more of an evolution as this work is developed?
I think one of the major decision points was actually right before I joined this position. They shifted to requiring our leaders to complete our yellow belt program, which you had to complete a yellow belt project to graduate. So we kind of started the team that was here originally, then started coaching the leaders on how to complete those projects. And I think that kind of shifted because that's a heavy load at that. I forget how many people were in that first class. Like, I think it was 300 or something like that. It was a huge number of people to get through initially. And we've continued to do that. Twice a year with COVID, we kind of split it up into the classes to smaller classes. So we're doing it a little bit more often, but we shifted to dedicating that time to helping them work the project versus us just coming in and telling them the solution. So kind of forcing them to slow down. And then I think it's been 2 years since we implemented this VE project. So that was us getting matched up with a director and coaching them through projects. And then in the last year, we've shifted to systemic value enhancement projects. So we will do system-wide projects and facilitate with frontline staff and the leaders in those organizations and work sessions, all of us working on the same projects or same goal. And we still do go in, like I'm on a project right now on a psych unit where I just am the one facilitating or doing the project. I'm going there, I'm living there. We have other people in our team that are living in other places, but it's kind of more, it's just more coaching because we do have so many leaders. Mary Beth talked about, we have buildings an hour in both distances. We're in Ohio and West Virginia, and we continue to grow. So as we continue to grow, we continue to gain more leaders. So we're continuing to spread that word. And we also have started allowing frontline staff to be in our yellow belt as well. So that's just more coaching as we coach more. And Mary Beth's going to talk about belts more, but that really was the shift. I think it was just kind of, they were like, okay, the CI process excellence team can't do everything. They can't do this. If we want this culture change, we're going to have the leaders, own this and listen to their people. And again, it's forcing them to slow down, at least for that one project. And we have people that go on to do more and some that we have to really pull through the project. So.
Sure. So that's a good segue to our last topic, Mary. If you can talk a little bit more about the belt training and certification process. What are some of the levels? How does this work?
Yeah. So the first level, we have different levels, and it's all training done by our team. So we have white belt, which is the majority of our frontline staff. So they attend, we have it online now through Teams. So we do a 1 hour training session. They walk away with some to-dos. They do a waste walk in their area. So getting them to look for their waste in their work. And then based off of their waste walk and what they see, they are entering an opportunity for improvement into KaiNexus. So we're getting our frontline that are, involved in their work and want to improve their work into KaiNexus, and their improvement goes to their leader. I think once we've really started pushing for this white belt, in the past, I think our 5-year goal was to do 1,000 frontline staff. And I think we did it in about 3 years. So I think that's a huge win that we have the frontline who want to be involved and want to work on their work. And by doing the white belt, we've also got a lot more interest from the frontline into the yellow belt, which, like Lynn said, is required for all the supervisors and directors in the system. So we've been doing the yellow belt for probably 4 or 5 years now, I'd say.
6.
Before my time in the department.
6 years, yeah.
6.
When they started, but we've grown that a lot. It's a 2-day in training in person in a classroom. And I think what we've adapted it, and we do a simulation in a healthcare system, food delivery. So it's something that everyone can kind of relate to and understand. And as we do the sim, we do the tools that we're requiring for yellow belts. So not only are they learning about the tools, but we're able to see how you can apply the tools when you leave. And then when we coach them, each person that goes through, we assign a coach from our team, and we help coach them through their A3. Each of their projects are submitted in KaiNexus. We've built a template, and it has like the DMAIC phases in it and the different tasks that we require under each phase of the DMAIC. And I know a lot of us, when we're coaching, we have KaiNexus up, and that's what we're following. It's their guide, and it's our guide to keep us on track of their to-dos. And then once they complete all of the required tasks, they get to present at leadership roundtable, so to their fellow leaders, or we have them present just one or two at our monthly meeting with the admin team. And that's been, honestly, I think that's been a huge win for our leaders getting to do that. And our admin team, are paying attention, and they're super involved, and they're asking questions and follow-up questions. And I think it's been a great connection, showing our admin team as well the work that our leaders are doing, improving their areas. And then once they complete their yellow belt, we do have the option for green belts. That is an additional 3 A3s that we require. We have a different template built for green belts in KaiNexus. And again, they still have their one-on-one coaching, but we are more hands-off with them. So they don't require as much, I don't want to say hand-holding, but as much one-on-one time, because they have completed already, and they do know what the expectation is and how to do the tools. So,
yeah. Well, it's an effort and, a culture that has really grown. I had the opportunity to come visit the main hospital. It was maybe 8 years ago, when your director, Mike McGowan, was doing the MBOE program at Ohio State that you mentioned earlier. I was coaching and mentoring him, so I had a chance to come to visit. And it's just been great to hear how the team and the effort has grown over time as he's been put into this role. The team has built and grown, and we're really, really happy that y'all are KaiNexus customers, and that we can be part of that equation.
Yeah, and I think to show that more people are involved, we also have leaders who are going for their black belt. So it's not required for their job. So we have some nursing leaders in our quality department as well, who are going for their black belt. So I think we're definitely growing the culture little by little here.
Yeah, I was going to touch on Mary Beth, that our team is required to do a black belt program as a new member. That's basically your first year. Your job is to complete the black belt through more STEAM, and then that's 2 projects and a test. So that's your first year, and that really, and Mike, when both of us joined, our director, he made sure to put us in areas that we weren't super familiar with. So I didn't go to clinics, and I didn't go to inpatient. I went to pharmacy. So just to help us grow. So we actually have 2 new team members that aren't healthcare at all. So it's been interesting to see them adjust to that role as well. So
yeah, because when you're sent to an unfamiliar area, you can't fall back on, well, I've seen this before, I know the answer. That shortcuts the DMAIC process or undermines it.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing so much about what you've done and what you're doing. Maybe as a final question, what's one thing that's on your mind in terms of what's next, for the rest of this year or beyond? What's next for you or for your process excellence team?
You can go ahead. You've been working with
I think for what's next for us is we're just continuing to kind of dive into inpatient world. I think while the initial project, the first ever big project they did was throughput, I feel like it then went more to worry about outpatient clinic operations, that kind of stuff. And we're really diving back into inpatient ED throughput, and kind of, like I said, connecting the outpatient world that we know so much about and the inpatient flow that's so broken, which is in healthcare is even more challenging. COVID pushed a lot of people to a lot of different places. We've changed how we're staffing and all kinds of different things. But I think that is really what the main focus for our team is going to be in the next year. I think is really focusing on the patient's experience and how outpatient and inpatient affect each other. I feel like we're at that point, and we have some really great leaders, physician leaders, as well, that are really behind that, and we're having the right talks and the right people there. So, and then I don't know
all the other things. Well, I know, like for myself, I'm working on observations in all the different areas that use our EHR and seeing how we can improve their processes by improving the EHR. So how our EHR can help us. That's one thing I've been getting to start on. Again, go to all these different areas. Even if it's not a project, observations, and we're able to pass the information on that needs to be passed on.
Yeah, a lot of times people come to us because they're like, you just see things so differently. So that's Mary Beth, the person from IT, works with our team pretty closely and wanted someone from our team to go and watch. Even though they have people from IT looking, they want us to look too.
That's another big effort. You went from, you described the whole patient flow experience as world hunger, maybe working on the EHR, that's world peace. That's another big one to take on.
Yeah.
Yes. Both things that I don't think we'll ever stop working on in our careers.
Yeah.
Well, keep working at it. I'm glad that you're doing that. So again, our guests today have been Mary Huck and Lynn Howell. They're both continuous improvement specialists with Memorial Health System. So thank you for being the guest here today. Thank you for being a KaiNexus customer, and thank you for sharing about what you're doing. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you. This was fun.
Yeah,
well,
it was fun.
Good. Well, thanks for listening. To learn more about KaiNexus, the company, our software, and our team, you can go to www.kainexus.com. That's KAINEXUS.com.